In terms of my background, from a formal training standpoint, from an educational standpoint, I went to school at Central Michigan University, spent some time at INSEAD outside of Paris, and then later at Harvard. And so that kind of gave me a foundation from formal training. But what I really want to spend the majority of the time talking about is my informal training, or what I refer to as my learned experiences. And I think while there's a lot of value, especially in my background, from the formal aspect, the formal training, you can read in a book what it feels like to get hit in the nose, right? It hurts, it's bloody, but until you really experience it, you don't really know. And so I think it's the combination of the formal training and then, in my case, over 40 years of the informal training. So I've spent my entire career in consumables. The first 25 years with Nestle, later with S.C. Johnson and Son. So my first 5 years were sales and marketing with Nestle's, and then sales and marketing supply chain with S.C. Johnson. When I turned 50, I retired, and I had a lot of curiosity to want to play entrepreneur. And at the time, there was a lot that was in the press, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, about ID theft. And in looking at that space, there was basically one brand, which was Fellows in the paper shredder business, and everything else was private label. And so I'm kind of a branded guy, sales and marketing background, a fierce focus on financial results, but I'm mostly a branded guy. And so I convinced Black & Decker to license me their name. And I used to say back then, Black & Decker is in 97% of households, either small appliances, or if you go into the basement, men have tools with Black & Decker, and there's more Black & Decker appliances than toilet paper, is what I used to say. After the last couple of weeks, I'm not so sure that's true anymore. So I played entrepreneur, created the Black & Decker paper shredder, which taught me a ton. Sold that company, then went on to work for another company, World Kitchen, in the space of old tired brands like Corel, Corningware. They were coming out of bankruptcy, so it was a bit of a turnaround. Successfully turned around that company, and then went to work at Paris Presents. My best friend, when we were at S.C. Johnson, when he was in marketing, I was running sales. When I was running marketing, he was running sales. When he was running Europe, I was running North America. And so we became just great friends to this day. Private equity took he and I into a company that they had owned that wasn't doing incredibly well. $8 million in EBITDA, $80 million in sales. And we made it the fastest growing makeup accessory company in the world, moving it to an EBITDA in 5 years of greater than 50 million and sales a little greater than 300 million. So that's kind of my background, if you will. A lot of bumps in the road that I'm more than happy to share with you, certainly a lot of failures and learnings. So as we begin, so that's a little bit of my background. As we begin today, I'm going to share with you a lot of things that I shared in building the next generation with employees that I was fortunate enough to work with. As we start down this path, I always told the employees, whether I was a big believer, still am a big believer in mentoring. And I used to have junior executives mentor me, as well as me playing the role of the mentor. And I learned a ton by listening to the next generation. But I want to start off this discussion by having you think about that you're really building a life and not a resume. And I told the employees, they'd look at me and it's like, what do you mean? And I always thought about that, you know, leadership, the soft skills or hard skills, what you're learning today isn't like a light switch where you come into the office, you turn the light switch on, and you become a leader. Or all of a sudden you've got this great wisdom. At the end of the day, you turn the light switch off and you go home. To me, it's all about how you conduct your life. And I think the skills that you're learning today are skills that carry over as a friend, as a parent, as a husband or wife. It's 24/7. And in fact, there's a lot through your friends that you can, if they're all have an opinion and they're playing in right field, I would go to left field. And that'd be my own little test market, and play around a little bit. But I really believe that you're building a life, and not just a resume. And I think it starts off with values. Everything, when I look back on my career, I was fortunate when I retired at the age of 50 from Johnson to spend a lot of time in self-reflection. What did I do well? What didn't I do so well? What really were my passions? What kind of made me tick? And I talked to a lot of people that had known me well. And so when you look at values, I mean, there's a list of, hundreds of different values. So what really frames up you, and what makes you tick? And so from a value standpoint, things like humility, diversity, and not just diversity in terms of gender or race or age, but thought. I love to debate and argue. And so one of my values is diversity. I think a lot comes out of having to know people that are different opinions. So just diversity more in thought leadership, more than anything. And then integrity, and I can give you examples where integrity in my career really played out. Trust. Today, a lot of people talk about empathy. I can remember 20 years ago talking about empathy, and it wasn't popular. You were thought to be soft or weak as a leader. And it always troubled me because I look back in my career, empathy is one of the things that really worked well for me. And then curiosity. Never stop being a student. Always. I think of myself today, almost 65 years of age, I'm still a student. I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to read, pick, and just have a great curiosity. I think as I saw it in my children, I see it today as a grandfather in my grandchildren, 3, 4, 5 years of age, they're saying, why? And as they grow up, they lose that. And I think we discourage that in our children. And yet you never want to lose that curiosity of why. And I think that really propels you in whatever you're doing in your life, and throughout your career. So you be purpose driven and kind of value led. And if you have that combination, and whatever the values are that work for you, are terrific. You just make them stronger, and minimize those that aren't you.